been on and all the comedy clubs. I've performed all over New York City. I've performed at Stand Up New York. Anyway, so I work at an accounting firm, and my boss somehow overheard that I was doing stand-up comedy tonight. He's like, "Oh, Oren, wow, that's great. Go break a leg." I'm like, "Fuck you, I hope you die in a car crash tonight." Yeah, so I don't work there anymore. So did anyone go trick-or-treating this past Halloween?
Yeah.
A couple of people.
Woo!
So I was always wondering, how come all these kids go around on Halloween trick-or-treating, they always ask the same question, and they always get the same answer, and they only want one answer, so why even ask the question? Well, I'll tell you why. When I was a little kid growing up, I was going trick-or-treating door to door, I knocked on this one guy's door. This guy answered the door, he was balding, in his 50s, wearing a white beater, potato chip crumbs all over his stomach. I'm like, "Trick or treat." He's like, "Trick, I'm a pedophile, get the fuck in here." Yeah, he tricked me, he told me he had some candy called chloroform, which sounded kind of good. So actually this past Halloween, I was in DC, and I was trick-or-treating, and I knocked on the White House door. And Obama himself answered the door. I'm like, "Trick or treat." He's like, "Trick, you can't keep your health care plan." Anyone here try online dating?
Yeah.
Woo! So, girls are hesitant to meet guys off online dating sites because, guys can be creepy. So, to ease their fears, I tell them that a recent survey showed that 10% of all marriages in the U.S. last year were due, at least in some part, to online dating sites. They're like, "Oh, that's great, I didn't know that." I don't tell them they're also responsible for nearly 50% of all missing persons cases. And if I call them back after the day and they don't respond, maybe make it 51%. I'm just kidding. No. So I was always wondering, is it supposed to make it okay when you're about to tell someone a close relative just died, to make sure they're sitting down first before you give them the news? And if they're sitting down first, they'll be okay with the news no matter what? "Hey, David, are you sitting down?" "Yeah." "Your brother was murdered last night." "Okay. Are you all right?" "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm sitting down." If I was standing up, it would have been pretty tragic, so thanks for the heads up. Or let's say you forget the one. "David, your brother was murdered last night." "Fucking A, if only I was sitting down." So, I was actually I went hunting this past weekend. I didn't really, it's just saying that for my routine. That's the one thing you always have to worry about the most when you're hunting. You have to be afraid of bears. Well, I brought a friend who was fatter and slower than me, so I got that covered. So we were in a cave exploring, and my friend's like, "Run, there's a bear!" I'm like, "Fuck you, you're such a racist. If it was a polar bear, you want to give it a hug." He's like, "Well, you never hear about polar bears rummaging through the garbage in backyard neighborhoods." So, everyone here can relate to riding the subway. You always hear those announcements. My favorite one is, if you see something, keep it to yourself. Chances are, if you tell an MTA employee, they won't know what the fuck you're doing. or those kids who are selling candy. It's like, "I got peanut butter M&Ms, $1, Twizzlers, $1. I'm not trying to raise money for my basketball team or to stay up the streets. I'm just trying to score some heroin. If you don't have money, I'll gladly accept syringes." So one thing that always bothered me is when you try to get out of the train, people rush onto the train before you can get off, and it's like a game. You got to get out in time. But then when people rush out of the train, when they get to the stairs leading out of the station, it looks like they're looking up at fucking Mount Everest. Like, you want to help them out, give them rope, oxygen masks, gloves. But some of these people I know, it doesn't even matter, they're so fat. They take up 2 seats on the train. "Excuse me, did you swipe your Metro card twice?" "No, I don't think so. Get the fuck up." Well, no, don't complain to me about the airlines wanting to start charging for 2 seats. You'll get 2 meals with that as well. So I was coming back home from my friend's house in Atlanta recently, and at the screening station, they decided to search me more in depth because I was wearing a yarmulke, and the Jews were notorious for blowing up airplanes. It felt like he was going overboard. He was wearing gloves and everything, but he was like touching my ass, and I'm like, "Excuse me?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Do you work here?" He laughed. "No, I'm kidding." He actually said, "Oh shit, I think they're onto me," and he ran away. And I'm like, "Oh shit, I think they're onto me. I don't even have a flight." So one thing I noticed in New York City is, well, a lot of stores have the name of their store and neon lights outside. And like, I was wondering, at what point does the business decision get handed down that it's time to fix the lights? Like, how many letters have to be not lighting up? 50%, 75%? Where do they draw the line? So I was in Midtown, and I saw a Kmart had this problem, and I asked to speak to a manager. And I'm like, look, your lights are not working, and it's very offensive. He's like, why is it offensive? I'm like, because only the K in Kmart is lit up. He's like, so why would that be a problem? He's like, yeah, but I'm like, you're right next to Kohl's and KFC, and they have the same problem. So you're scaring away 13% of the population. Another thing about New York City, it's supposed to be so modern, yet there's a lot of buildings that you have to open a door to get into the elevator. Honey, oh, can you have 5, please? Oh, thanks for holding the door open, by the way. Oh, no, I was actually just pressing door closed, but when you got in at the last second, I moved my hand to door opens, and they believed like I had it there the whole time.
I do that all the time.
I was wondering, shouldn't there be a cutoff to when young moms who have new babies can say how old their kid is in months? Like, after a while, it gets annoying. Oh, how old is your son? He looks so big. He's 17 months. Oh, wow. What about you? I'm like, my son's 360 months. I if you want to divide by 12. So, I actually go to a lot of stand-up comedy myself, and I noticed that a lot of the comedians, even the really good ones, unfortunately, don't have a good way of closing their act. All right, you guys have been great. I got to run.
Woo!